When you think of global power, the US usually comes to mind. The United States is the superpower that drives world politics, technology, and economics. But what if I told you that Saudi Arabia, a nation with a small population and massive oil reserves, exercises an incredible influence over the world's most powerful countries? Saudi Arabia's control over the US is not just a matter of oil, it's a complex web of politics, economics, and strategic power that has shaped the world for decades. Let's dive into how Saudi Arabia has strategically embedded itself within the fabric of US power, using money, diplomacy, and oil to secure its place as a key player on the world stage. 1. The power of oil. The core of the relationship at the heart of the US-Saudi relationship is oil. Saudi Arabia holds some of the largest oil reserves in the world, and since the 1940s this has been the backbone of their partnership with the United States. Through a series of secretive agreements, Saudi Arabia guaranteed to keep oil prices steady and supply vast amounts of crude oil to the US. In exchange for military protection, the US became deeply invested in ensuring that Saudi Arabia's oil wealth remained accessible. Why does this matter? Well, oil is the lifeblood of the global economy. The US depends on oil for everything from fuel to the production of everyday goods. By securing the supply, Saudi Arabia holds a powerful lever over US economic interests. 2. The petrodollar. How Saudi Arabia controls the global economy. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Saudi Arabia's influence doesn't stop at oil. The real game changer is the petrodollar system. In the 1970s, the US and Saudi Arabia came to a secret deal. Saudi Arabia would sell its oil exclusively in US dollars, and in return the US would provide military protection and political support. This arrangement led to the creation of the petrodollar system. By pricing oil in dollars, Saudi Arabia helped ensure that the US dollar remained the global reserve currency, strengthening the US economy, making the dollar the world standard for trade. Every time a country buys oil, they have to buy it with US dollars, fueling demand for the dollar globally. That's billions of dollars in global transactions flowing into the US economy every year. In essence, Saudi Arabia's oil powers the global reliance on the US dollar, and this gives the US unparalleled economic dominance. 3. Military ties. A weapon of influence. While oil and dollars are important, Saudi Arabia's grip on the US is further reinforced by military ties. The kingdom is one of the largest buyers of US weapons in the world, spending billions on advanced technology to defend itself. In fact, the US government has sold Saudi Arabia over $100 billion in arms over the past few decades, but the influence goes both ways. By purchasing such a vast amount of military equipment, Saudi Arabia ensures that the US has a vested interest in the region's stability. Saudi Arabia's strategic location, sitting in the heart of the Middle East, is a critical asset for US military interests. It gives the US unparalleled access to the region and control over key shipping routes, all while bolstering its own military presence in the Gulf. 4. The political influence, lobbying, and soft power. Perhaps the most shocking aspect of Saudi Arabia's influence is how it plays the political game within the US. To the public, Saudi Arabia is a key ally, but behind the scenes, the kingdom uses its vast wealth to influence US politics. Saudi Arabia spends millions lobbying US politicians and funding think tanks that advocate for its interests. US politicians are often swayed by financial contributions and the promise of lucrative deals. Many former US officials, from presidents to generals, are hired by Saudi Arabia to advocate for its interests. This revolving door between US politics and Saudi wealth gives the kingdom unmatched political leverage in Washington, influencing decisions on everything from foreign policy to defense contracts. 5. The 9/11 connection. A controversial legacy, but this relationship is not without controversy. One of the darkest chapters in the US-Saudi alliance came after the September 11th attacks. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi nationals, raising suspicions about Saudi Arabia's role in fostering radicalism. Yet despite this, Saudi Arabia faced little scrutiny from the US government. Instead, the US continued to support the kingdom, prioritizing its strategic interests over the victims of 9/11. The reasons for this are clear. The US was not willing to jeopardize its relationship with the kingdom, as it had too much to lose from an economic and geopolitical standpoint. 6. The future. Will Saudi Arabia's influence ever end? As we move into a new era, there are signs that the US-Saudi relationship may be shifting. The rise of renewable energy, a more independent US energy market, and changing political dynamics may lessen Saudi Arabia's grip on American interests. However, Saudi Arabia still wields incredible influence, and the US is unlikely to sever ties with the kingdom anytime soon. The petrodollar system, the military relationship, and the political leverage are too entrenched. Ultimately, Saudi Arabia's control over the US is not just about oil or money. It's about power, influence, and the careful orchestration of one of the most important alliances in modern history. Next time you think about the United States and its position in the world, remember that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is one of the unseen forces shaping its fate. What happens next could change the global balance of power forever.